Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, Kestra IS, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Advisory Services, LLC, Kestra AS, an affiliate of Kestra IS. Capital Advisory Group, Inc. is not affiliated with Kestra IS or Kestra AS. Neither Kestra IS nor Kestra AS provide legal or tax advice and are not certified public accounting firms.
You work hard for your money. For the next hour, you're going to learn how to keep what's yours. Capital Advisory Group presents Keep What's Yours. Here is Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Hello and welcome to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday to you, too. We are here for you every week to talk taxes. I know. Yeah, everybody, oh, God, show about taxes. Well, do you pay taxes? Do I pay taxes?
Yes.
Do you pay taxes,
Yes.
Jeff? Everyone listening
does.
pays taxes. Have you ever run into any sort of scenario where the government has deemed someone tax-free?
Never tax-free, just not earning enough income to file a tax return. And you say, hey, that's great. But again, at the end of the day, maybe not.
Right. Well, I'd rather have income.
Exactly, to have the problem of paying taxes
Right.
versus not have the income and go, hey, I don't have to file a tax return.
Is it possible to retire, have all of your money already moved into like some sort of Roth or something, get your Social Security, which is not supposed to be taxed, and be completely tax-free in retirement?
Borderline. It could be the income would have to be low, but the trick would be every time that you do take out money, so you'd still have to file a return, and here's why. The Roth is the kicker. The Roth IRA, when you take money out of it, it's still going to generate a 1099 each year.
Well, because theoretically, the way a Roth works, the money that's in there that accrues, you earn money on that, is tax-free. That's the benefit of the Roth.
But the way that the whoever holds that Roth, the reporting of the tax are not taxable is at the tax return level. So every year as you go forward, we run into this a lot. Every year as you go forward and you do a contribution to a Roth, you need to tell your tax preparer that you did that, okay? And we might pick it up from what's called a 5498, which is just fair market value of the account previous December 31st, but it also say, hey, they did $4,000, $2,000, $6,000 to a Roth. So the taxable side of a Roth withdrawal actually resides on the tax return. And the key is you get a 1099, and it says there's a box on it that's checked. It says, say you take $10,000 out of your Roth. The box is checked, taxable amount not determined. So what takes place is you got to take it to the tax return level, and you plug in that $10,000. The tax return knows, hey, you put $100,000 in this Roth, so the 10 you're taking out is not taxable, and it doesn't tax it on the actual tax return.
Okay. So you still have to file.
Exactly. But
Right.
if you've never told or keyed into the tax software
that you put it in
your
the first
contributions,
place,
it's going to make it taxable for you because it's not.
because where did this come from?
Yeah.
How do we know it came from
Exactly,
a Roth?
because you could move it from multiple accounts over the years. You could put money, put $1,000 at the bank, $1,000 at a brokerage account in a Roth. And if you don't put it on the tax return, that's the issue. So typically what we see is somebody takes money out of a Roth. They come to us and they're like, it makes it taxable every time. I can't fix it. It's just because it doesn't have the contributions keyed in as a basis.
It didn't show when it came in.
Exactly.
And then it shows it coming out.
Yeah.
And so,
so
where'd this money come
it's
from?
like, hey, it's all taxable.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And this is the whole thing that we talk about. If you stay within the guardrails of the United States tax code, the IRS isn't going to bother you.
Exactly.
If you show where the money went in, then when it goes out, okay, got it.
Exactly.
I mean, otherwise, isn't that like money laundering, right?
Technically.
It's like, well, where did this money come from? All of a sudden, you've got $100,000 and you didn't tell us where it came from.
Exactly. And it just shows up and you're like, hey, I don't want to pay tax on it.
Right. So the federal government knows everything about us. And I think
pretty much.
I think we're just going to have to come to terms with that.
Yes.
And this whole idea of the IRS hiring a bunch of new agents to go after people who have been misfiling their tax returns,
yeah,
or people who have been
call it misfiling.
Also, people who have been cheating on their tax returns, or those people who, God bless them, just don't want to file a tax return.
Yes.
The government's coming after them because technically they are in the wrong.
They want their money.
You know, and well, I got away with it in years past. Well, don't tell the IRS that.
Exactly.
They hate that.
And you don't want to say that, but I mean, with COVID and everything that has taken place in the last couple of years, I'm not saying everybody go cheat on your taxes, by no means. But what's taken place is we've seen some loose guidance, if you want to call it that, from the IRS. Now going forward, we're starting to see a little bit more of, I don't want to say a clear path because they never really give a clear path, but kind of a clearer path like, hey, you might want to worry about that kind of stuff. And I see that enforcement getting more, I'll say, tighter over the next few years.
Yeah.
So if you're like, hey, I did that the last 4 years, nobody said a word, yeah, I get that. But you may not want to do that going 23 going forward.
And when you get in there, don't remind them that you've been doing it the past 4 years.
Well, yeah,
they can go backwards. Say, all right, well, let's see.
Yeah.
Let's see what you have been up to.
If you ever get audited and you are really sitting in an audit, less is more. That's the easiest way to explain it. If you give too many details, they may go, oh, hey, we're going to forget this and go here.
Oh, well, that was small potatoes. Let's see what you've
Exactly.
really been up to. But if I do everything right, I contribute to a Roth, which is taxable on the front end. I'm just taking money that they've already taxed.
After-tax money.
I'm dumping it into a Roth. Whatever grows inside that is tax-free.
Well, so it grows tax deferred, which means you don't pay any current income tax on any capital gains, dividends, whatever, as it moves forward. And then when you get to as long as you play the game with the right time frame,
59 and a half,
5 years or 59 and a half, whichever's longer. When you get there, then you go to take it out. It will not be taxable.
It will not be taxable.
Yes.
So there's a way for me to dump some money into my Roth. It's already taxed. The government is not allowed to tax us twice.
Well,
for the most part,
Social Security, if you really look at that,
if you look at that,
that's almost a triple tax.
But theoretically,
can't fix that.
On my money that I put in the Roth, they're not going to tax me again if I play the game the correct way.
Exactly.
And so I can retire and maybe not have to pay taxes.
Not pay tax. It's very possible it would have to be strategically laid out to get there.
Right.
So,
and I probably won't be living the biggest highfalutin lifestyle.
No, you will not be driving the Maserati, guaranteed. But you won't have to pay any tax either.
Right. I can rent. I can rent one.
You could too.
Yeah. You and me, Maseratis.
That's right.
We rent them at noon. So that's kind of the idea of what Jeff does, and I can come to him, and I do come to him. Full disclosure: Jeff does my taxes every year. I come to him and I say, Jeff, this is our plan. This is our, I say, 20-year plan. And Jeff looks at my finances and goes, let's make it a 30-year plan.
32.
Yeah, don't. Oh, it's gone up.
Market's not doing too good right now. So.
Don't get too comfortable. You're going to be working well into your 70s. But I say, this is the plan that we want to have. And Jeff can take a look and not only plan out for the next 32 years, but plan out every single quarterly. You know,
just look at it we'd look at it on annual, but we could break it down quarterly, monthly, however you'd like to look at it as you go forward.
What can I do now to keep more of my money 32 years from now, and what can I do now to keep more of my money every 2 weeks when I get a paycheck?
Yes.
So the tax question is not just something that comes up April 15th of every year, or comes up when I'm looking to retire. 5 years.
It's ongoing.
I'm going to retire in 5 years. Let's start looking at my tax.
And again, it'll probably change. You got to look at from each administration, 4-year terms, 8-year terms.
Tax code is different now than it was 10 years ago.
And they'll adjust tax code as you go forward. It's all part of the game, if
Playing
you want to call it.
the game.
Yes.
And that's the thing. It's like, for the longest time, Jeff, I'm like, I don't have any money. What do I care? But I did have a little bit of money.
Yes.
You know, I could have socked away, even $100 per paycheck.
Exactly.
And that would have done
if you're putting
compound interest.
Most people are like, I don't want to start that. I'm not going to worry about it because I'll have the money next year or 2 years from now. Don't. Even if we have little simple IRA plans that they're doing $20, $25 a month through different manufacturers in St. Louis. The concept is get something going, just a minimal dollar amount, and then each year just kind of raise it 1%. 2%, whatever the case may be, and it's out of sight, out of mind. As time goes on, you'll
I'll never miss it because I'll never see it. It comes out of my paycheck before I even get a chance to touch it. And the last thing I'll be doing is blowing it on burritos and candy. So, make it go towards something that I can't touch.
Slurpees.
Because if I got it, Jeff, I'll spend it.
Oh, yeah.
So
and that's human nature. That's different than anybody else.
Take it away from me before I have a chance to do that.
If it's in your pocket, you'll spend it. So.
And, when we looked at my son's schooling, I always bring this up every week. My son's schooling, we have to pay for that. Well, there's a way for us to do a flex spending account to sock some money away pre-tax and then use that to pay for school. And before you know it, we just saved $1,200.
Exactly.
A year. And that's money. That's
real money.
Money that would have otherwise gone to the federal government in the form of taxes.
Never see it ever again.
So we kept $5,000, and the government would have taxed us on that money, and that would have gone off. It would have equaled $1,200. It would have gone off 24% tax rate. Gone off to the federal government. Who knows where? It's paying for 2 toilet seats now.
Yes. And maybe 1.5.
And a hammer, And otherwise, I get to keep it.
Exactly.
And the federal government is fine with that because it's going towards a good cause. Child care, schooling.
Yep.
You can do it with medical bills, do a health savings account.
Health savings, same thing.
The government is who they are, big bad I'm here from the government. I'm here to help.
Yeah.
They're big bad government, but there are some things in the tax code written in there that are beneficial to us.
That actually help us, yes. You just need to know when to apply it and how to apply it. And don't, like we were seeing a lot of people, they're like, hey, why can't I do this year? If they're doing their own taxes, they're starting to call saying, I can't take a $600 charitable contribution this year. Well, in 2022 is what we're focusing on. It's because it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So, to get into that, that's one of the weird things on the tax code. Little subtle changes that they did not approve for the next tax year go poof.
Well, let's talk about that because you were on with Jennifer and Wendy through this past week, and you said that many will owe more money this year than they did last year.
Yes.
Let's talk about that. Here's a very specific example. We do this show. We've been doing it for 2 years now, and you told me about the charitable tax credit, $600.
Yes.
Married, filing jointly.
Yes.
So I went out and I donated $500 to the Backstoppers. We do this Backstoppers thing here at the Big 550. It's a good cause. My brother's a police officer, and it's going to the right place. So I donated $500 and I kept my receipt. And then you told me the other day
that you did that, but
that $600 you were telling me about, that was for last year's taxes.
2021. It ended in 2021. We assumed that they would, continue the law into 2022. But apparently it was just strictly a COVID thing. 2022, they did not extend that tax law. And that was what they called a non-itemizers charitable contribution. You got $300 or $600. $300 if you're single, $600 if you're married filing jointly. That does not exist.
So this is one of those things where I have to – let's try to explain this as easy as possible. With the was it Trump tax cuts with the Trump tax law in 2017? Paul Ryan pushed it through and then retired right afterwards. That was weird.
Really weird.
But it got rid of itemizing.
Yes. So,
unless you had like $26,000.
Oh, yeah, it's 26 plus. But what they did was it was called SALT, which is state and local taxes, and that's really where most people had the money in a sense. The problem is they limited that to $10,000 per person, and that's it. So what's in there is your real estate tax. So most people, if you own a home, St. Louis, it's anywhere between 4, 5, 6, 7, and it probably went up higher than what you expected it to for last year. That plus your state and local tax that you actually pay is capped at $10,000. that just knocked pretty much everybody out of the ability to itemize unless you had really high medical expenses. Mm-hmm. You were extremely charitable, and I mean extremely charitable, from either cash or what they call non-cash contributions, which is where you clean your basement out one day, take all that stuff to Goodwill, drop it off, get a receipt, and run away. So when he did that, he knocked pretty much everybody out of being able to itemize. And again, current administration hasn't changed it. They left it just as is. So you can't itemize unless you have $29,000 to $30-some-odd thousand worth of stuff to
charitable contributions, medical bills. It's got to add up. That's a lot of money.
It's a bunch of money. So most people don't even come close, and they'll just take standard deduction and run with it.
So my $500 to backstoppers. My wife does $1,000 to nurses for newborns.
Yeah.
That's just out of the goodness of our hearts. We can't itemize
and again,
that anymore.
So the concept behind that is, again, yes, the backside of your charitable contribution is a tax deduction, but you're not deducting for the tax deduction. How's that?
Right.
You still need to be charitable if you're going to give them $500 or she's going to give $1,000. Still continue that on as you go forward.
We didn't do it for the tax cuts.
That's what I'm getting at. A lot of people are like, well, wait, I can give $300 and I get a deduction. You can, or you could, I should say. But you can't currently going forward. So
anybody that did a charitable donation this year, that was out of the goodness of your heart.
Yes.
What about this? Let me blast open the fourth wall here, touch the third rail. What about church tithing? Is that something that could be written off?
But it actually has to hit that standard deduction or greater. So that's why I say if you do church tithing and you're doing 10, 15, 20%, and we have many people that do that, and they give away a chunk of change a year.
But it's got to be over like
29,000 plus.
Yeah.
So it's a combination as you go. The Schedule A is kind of, a finicky little form. But it's a combination of stuff. So you get, if you hit your $10,000 threshold in the first part of it, and you had $30,000 in charitable contributions you gave to the church, yes, you probably could start to hit that itemization.
But that's tough.
But that's a chunk. It's a chunk of change that you're giving away.
Jeff, I'd love to get to the point someday where I can give $29,000 away in charity.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to the point where I have $29,000 in medical costs.
Yeah, no, you don't want to go down that path.
Don't want to get there. But for those out there who do have that, it's good to know.
So again, the flip side of that is on the medical side, and everybody remember this, the first 7.5% of your adjusted gross income. So we're going to keep the math simple. So you basically make $1,000 a year. The first $75 of your medical expenses are on you. Anything in excess of 7.5%, you get to start to write off or attempt to write off. Now remember, part of that is medical premiums that you pay. Let's say that you're older and you have supplements. So you have Medicare supplements, those count. All that long-term care. So if you have long-term care policies, that gets added in there. If you go to the doctor, and I see some people that are very diligent on this and some people that are not. The mileage from you driving from your house to the hospital, your house to the doctor, it's medical mileage. You get to try to take a shot at that.
Oh,
so the concept is for some people, if they're close, we'll say, hey, go back to the drawing board, round up all this junk that you could put on that tax receipt, see if you can make the cut.
What did you say, long-term
care premiums, depending upon your age, there's a percent that you get to take a deduction on that.
Off of my insurance?
Off of your actual Schedule A under medical.
Yeah.
So if you have a long-term care policy, and I don't have the exact age range, I think it starts at 50 or 55, and you get 40% of whatever you pay in long-term care premiums, and it works its way up. The older you are, the more that you get, from a perk in a sense.
And here's what I'm taking away from what you just said for the past 3 minutes. This is so complicated that trying to do it on your own is next to impossible.
I won't say it's next to impossible, but you got to know tax law.
No, well, okay.
Tax theory.
We don't.
Average person.
Let's just
no.
assume.
Because the problem is, and no offense to TurboTax, TurboTax it's going to ask you, hey, did you have this? Yes or no? And you click that button and you're down a rabbit hole. And if you go the wrong way, most people can't get back.
Right.
Is the problem. So you go, it's only worth a couple $100 or whatever. I'm not going to mess with it. Again, like you always say, what's your time worth?
Yeah,
exactly. That's the theory.
I mean, if you're leaving a couple $100 on the table, that's all Jeff really charges
to
do
exactly.
taxes. I mean, obviously it's a sliding scale, I'm sure, at the heart of the tax return. But
sure. The harder, more forms, the harder the return. You got K-1s and partnerships and crazy stuff. Yes, the price is going to go up.
If you're not doing anything, Jeff says this all the time, if you're not doing anything about your taxes and tax mitigation, he can almost assuredly find you something. Somewhere to keep some more of your money.
Yes.
So I always say he pays for himself. Obviously, he found us $1,200, and that was just one thing that we did with our son's school. But there's other things that we're doing, and not to mention the fact that Jeff's helping my wife out with moving her money around, and he just does so many things for us that it's just worth it because there is that commercial out there. I've been telling everybody. I don't even know who it's for, but it's for one of the tax things.
I just heard it.
Well, there's
walking down the hall.
There's the one on the radio, but there's the one on the TV, and the guy's on the couch sleeping with his baby. And basically, they're saying exactly what I've been saying to you. Why do your own taxes when you could be sleeping and taking a nap on the couch with your baby on a Saturday afternoon with your time off? Rather than trying to fumble through stacks of paper and try to figure out the tax code.
What goes where and why.
Let Jeff do it. What's your time worth? What's your weekend worth? It's not worth this. I'll tell you that much. So other ways that, before we go to break, other ways that we'll probably owe more money this year than we did last year, child tax credits are changed too.
Stimulus dollars are not out there. There was no stimulus dollars for 2022 given. Child tax credit, remember, if you had a child under the age of 17, you got $250 for a 7-year-old to a 17-year-old, and you got $300 a month under age 7.
And that was coming to us monthly.
And that came to you monthly from, I believe, July 1st to December 1st, or July 1st or 15th or something like that. That was paid to you direct. Well, what they did was in 2022, they dropped that. Our friend, what was his name, Senator Manchin?
No, Joe Manchin.
Joe Manchin did not want it in the tax code at all, killed it. And so the problem is it drops back to $2,000. So you get $2,000 a kid now going forward, where it was either $1,800, $3,600.
Now refresh my memory. How long have we been doing this? Was that last year, or was that 2 years ago?
That was last year.
A year and a half.
No, that was 2021 that we did that. 2022, that did not exist.
So I don't have that for the whole year.
The whole year.
Has it been a year already?
It has.
Holy cow.
Time flies, believe me.
Okay.
It's been a full year.
Wow. So we were counting on $300 a month.
Yeah.
That's gone now, and now it's just $2,000 at the end of the year.
$2,000 on a tax return, whereas before they paid you, either $1,800 or $1,500 for those 6 months, and then you still got an $1,800 or a $1,500 credit on your tax return in the past. Yeah. Now it's just $2,000. Can't get it cash, just $2,000.
Doesn't matter the age of the kid. Doesn't matter.
Technically dependent under 24, depending upon income, gets a little tricky when you get up there.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe Manchin.
Yeah.
Now I'm just. My son's not making as much money as he used to.
That's right.
And then a lot of the stimulus money that we had.
There was nothing really in 22 that they gave out. So,
yeah. And we'll talk about this in the next segment, but Joe Biden has announced that he's ending the COVID emergency broadcast system, whatever, May 11th.
Yes.
Everything's going
all
away.
Clear. Yeah.
So, my tests, the free tests that we were getting, the free shots, the boosters and everything, that's all going to change. And there's probably a lot of things that are changing as well behind the scenes.
Yeah.
So that's coming to an end. So did you pay X amount of money in taxes last year? This year everything's changing.
Yes.
Especially if you have a bunch of kids.
Oh, yeah, that too.
So you'll find out. If you need help with any of this stuff, call Jeff, 636-394-5524. Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Advisor with Capital Advisory Group. Why do your own taxes? Why put yourself through the ringer? So many things that Jeff just talked about now with healthcare costs, with charitable donations. Did you reach the threshold where you can start itemizing? All of these things, it just, the more you talk about it, Jeff, the more complicated you realize this stuff is. And I can't even imagine trying to sit down this March and trying to put it all together.
Yeah.
What I don't know could fill up this entire room and then some. And we've been doing this show for 2 years now.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm talking, I'm levels above the people out there in their car, and I'm still saying this is nuts.
It's nuts.
Who knows?
It's supposed to get easier,
and
and that's never going to happen. It's getting even more trickier as we move forward with like the Secure Act 2.0 that adds, I think it's 85 or 90 new provisions out there, and each one of those has its own little caveats from a tax angle.
It's changing even more now.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes for the better.
Well, the Secure Act 2.0 is for the better. At the end of the day, it helps pretty much everybody put more money away. But again, it's the long-term effects of, hey, I can put more money away, but the IRS knows, hey, we're going to make more money down the road.
Yeah. And one of the things is every time they change this, they're not sending someone to my house. Like, I'm from the IRS. Here's what's changed and how it affects your situation specifically. They don't do that.
Nope. Nobody's there to do that.
When they do something, a Secure Act 2.0 for the better, then all of a sudden I'm doing – last time I talked to Jeff was 2 years ago, and I'm just doing the same old thing. I could be leaving money on the table.
On the table. Yep.
On the table. So talk to Jeff. Find out where you stand. A couple of years of tax returns.
Yeah,
a couple of paycheck stubs.
2 years tax returns typically. Paycheck stubs to start, and then basically we can build you a tax organizer, get it out to you.
Find out how many kids you have.
Yeah,
all
kind of the 20 questions.
How many houses do you have?
How many houses, and stuff
where do you
like
work?
that.
Yeah. So pretty easy stuff to bring in. We have all this stuff anyway. Bring it into Jeff, let him eyeball it, and just say, look, there's at least 1, 2, 3, or 4 different things that we could be doing here.
Exactly.
To keep more of what's yours. That's the name of the show. That's the name of the book that Jeff wrote, and it's the name of the lifestyle that I lead today. I want to keep more of what's mine. I don't mind paying taxes, but not a penny more.
More than what you're legally obligated to.
636-394-5524. We'll be back right after this.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back in the Big 550, back to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert, sitting here with Jeff Zufall. The idea, keep more money in your pocket, on your paycheck, less money going out to the federal government. There are so many different things that we can do. On that front, maxing out our IRA, fully investing in a Roth.
401ks,
taking advantage of health savings account, taking advantage of flex spending accounts. That's what we do. Call Jeff and say, "Flex, give me the Josh special."
Yeah.
And that's a flex spending account. Schooling. You got kids. Are they going to go to college?
Exactly.
Are they going to go to trade school?
Yeah.
Even if they go into the military, save for their schooling, and then if you don't use it, then you don't use it.
Exactly. So here's another one that we just stumbled on too, which is part of the new Secure Act. So we have people who are like, oh, I don't want to put too much money in my 529 plan for college because if they don't use it, I have to pay tax on it. The concept now is what they've allowed, and it's a lifetime. So say that you get your children graduate college, they get free ride, whatever, and you now have this 529. You're like, man, I got to take it out and pay tax on it.
So the idea is if they would have just left it on their paycheck, they would have paid taxes on it too.
Exactly.
The government is just saying you saved all this money for school. You didn't end up having to use it. Maybe your son went to the military. Maybe your daughter got a full ride to college.
Exactly.
You're not using it. So if you take it out, then you pay taxes on it. I mean, what's fair is fair.
Hypothetically, starting this year, 2023, Secure Act says that you could take out, it's a $35,000 lifetime amount for the beneficiary, which is technically the child. So each year, they could take from the 529 $6,000, which is their Roth contribution amount for the year. They take $6,000, move it over, drop it into a 529 plan, from the 529 plan to their Roth and not pay tax on it.
To the child's Roth.
Yes.
So look, this is great. Okay, you went to the military and served our country.
Exactly.
You get a full ride to college, paid for by Uncle Sam, and that money that your parents saved can now be transferred tax-free
to a
Roth in your name.
Up to $35,000 lifetime conversion. And then from what we're reading, there's no provision out there that says you can't do it yet. You just change the beneficiary, which would move kids, move it back to the parents. I mean,
your kid. Let's stay on the up and up though for the benefit of the children. You save this money for your kid. Well, they're not going to use it. I'll take it back. You save this money for your kid's schooling. Your son turned out to be a genius and got a full ride. Or maybe this is my dream. My son is the kicker on the Harvard football team.
There you go.
Pie in the sky.
Do they have a football team?
Yeah. Dad, I got into Yale. I'd be so disappointed. Your kid gets a full ride to college.
Yes.
You can take that money that you saved for him or her and move it into a Roth savings plan for them for their future.
Exactly.
And it's still going to benefit them, and it's still it's still tax deferred.
Yes.
Man.
So
boy,
that's
the federal government actually does.
That's where I say there's some good things in this that are hiding in there. You just need to know how to use them. So
I need to go kiss Ann Wagner.
Yes.
Right on the lips. Corey Bush.
Yes.
Blaine Luetkemeyer. I think he's my
St. Charles.
St. Charles. Yeah. That's who my guy is. Because I live out in St. Charles now. And then both of our senators, because I'm sure they helped get that passed through as well.
There was. There's a lot of push on that one.
So. Josh Hawley and the new guy, Eric. Give them both big lip kisses.
Yeah. And that's just the tip of the iceberg that's in there.
Secure Act 2.0. There's a lot of new stuff in there. How else would we know about it, Jeff?
Let's sat down and read it, and it's a really dry read. So,
I bet. I bet it is. I don't want to do that, so I'll just call you 636-394-5524. Are you contributing to that 529?
Exactly.
Just know that. Well, I think my kid's smart enough, so I'm not going to save for their college. No, put it in there.
You have to.
Just put it in there. You won't pay taxes on it, and hopefully, when all is said and done, it gets used for schooling. Or
exactly.
It goes to a good cause, which is their retirement fund. Interest rates.
Yes.
Inflation.
Our friends at the Federal Reserve raised rates Wednesday, another quarter point. So that will be the 8th. So in 2022, they raised rates 7 times. And if you look at a chart, that is the most aggressive rate hikes going all the way back to the 70s. So with this last rate hike the other day, we have 8 times that they've increased it. So it basically what they're trying to do is knock down inflation. So our true inflation rate as of the other day this is as of December. We'll get a new read here shortly, probably next week or so. But we were at 6.5 in inflation. So we've been as high as 8. We're down into the range of 6.5 as we sit today. So you hear from the White House, hey, look what we've done on inflation. It's still 6.5. Target is 2 to 2.5% from the Federal Reserve max. So what the Federal Reserve is saying is they didn't quite come out and say that they're pausing yet, but they said there will be a few more minor rate hikes. So that's what, if this works perfect, that's what's called a soft landing, which means we avoided a recession and the world didn't come to an end because of what they're doing. And I say that sarcastically. Or a hard landing means they miss the mark completely and inflation goes crazy and we go into a full recession. The question, though, is in the late 70s, early 80s, the exact same setup happened that's happening today, which is they didn't give an all clear, but back then they did. And then all of a sudden inflation reared its head again and they had to compete and go back through this rate hike, multiple times to knock it down in a sense. So that's the question where we're at. But the old adage out there is you can't fight the Fed, which means really you can't be a bond investor, borderline stock investor if the Fed's raising interest rates aggressively because you're going nowhere.
Yeah.
So That's the question of the day. Is the minute that the Fed says, hey, we're pausing, we're not going to raise rates for 6 months, hypothetically the market should take off. Just because now you don't have that stranglehold of the Federal Reserve raising rates every other month as we go forward.
What's inflation doing right now?
So inflation is actually, we were at 7.1, we're at 6.5.
Ticking down.
Yeah, so it's ticking down. Again, if you go to the grocery store, you're going to go, what? They're nuts. It's twice that at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Because this calculation for inflation is X food and oil.
So minus food, minus oil, minus things that we actually
You have to buy every
day. So
everything looks great.
Lamps and cars and pillows
Yes.
and, the stuff that we buy maybe once a quarter.
Yeah.
That's what they're doing the inflation numbers on.
But if you go to the grocery, when I got drawn into going to the grocery store a week ago, I was stunned on prices. Not saying I'm there all the time.
Everybody's talking about eggs.
Well, even eggs. Everything. I just walked through it going, wait, it's twice, 3 times what it was. So.
Yeah, my wife famously has said, I never look at the price of anything. She's looking now. Because she's looking at our finances going, where did all of our savings go?
Exactly.
It's gone to the eggs, honey. I read a story. ExxonMobil, record profits.
Yes.
Shell, oil company, record profits. Obviously, the gas and the oil industry, it does what it wants. It really has no rhyme or reason to it other than the whims of OPEC and the whims of whatever. They'll say, well, the Russia invasion that really did it. Record profits. If they had to raise oil prices because it cost them more, then they wouldn't have had record profits.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm looking at other industries, though. I read a story that said, is our inflation being manufactured by greed? By corporate greed.
Part of that you could kind of, I wouldn't say yes, but I would say
last year Chipotle had record profits.
Yeah.
Well, if they're charging me more for a burrito because their shipping costs increase, because their employee costs increase, then it should be a wash.
Hypothetically. But again, at the end of the day, you have to look at it from the corporation standpoint. You have to operate in a profit mode. Otherwise, you go out of business. So again, if you take it back to COVID, now COVID had a lot to do with this to really, skew what we're looking at. If you were the widget manufacturer through COVID and your raw material to manufacture the widget went up by 30 cents, you raise your price by 60. You had to stay competitive. The problem is no one's coming along going, oh, wait, let me decrease that.
Oh, we're in a better spot now.
Yeah, it's part of the profit. So
we raised the price to $10 for a burrito. We're not going back.
And that was one of the big things with the Federal Reserve raising interest rates last year. And they kept saying, wait, we're not seeing a response from the economy. It took 7 rate hikes in 2022 to finally get the slightest little adjustment in inflation, and that was towards the end of the year. The problem is those profits, and to a degree, are built into what's taken place. So it's going to take a little bit to chip away at it, and hopefully and again, I don't know the right answer, but to get inflation back to a norm, if you want to call it that, should help settle some of that as we go forward.
I just find it crazy, and maybe we're talking too high level here, but I find it crazy that the stock market is liking the fact that I'm spending less money.
Stock market's looking for any reason to go up,
right?
And because there's really no gigantic catalyst out there.
The country wants me to stop spending so much money.
But again, our economy, if you look at any report that's out there, is based upon consumption. Period. End of story. That used to be where you used to see the M1 and the M2 and the M3 money, rates in a sense, at savings rates, how cash is moving. And today, you have to dig deep to find those numbers because it's consumption. How much does the average American consume on an annual basis? And that's what everything in our economy is based upon.
And as we mentioned last week, you look around the other economies, Turkey, Argentina. They're at 75%, 98%
it's crazy
inflation.
Numbers.
It's insane out there. England, which is, you always look across the
they just raised
the
rates.
Pond to see how they're doing.
Yeah.
We're pretty much the same, right? Their interest rates or their inflation
is higher than ours.
It's a lot higher
and
than ours.
They just raised, I think they just raised another half a point just Thursday, Wednesday, something like that.
Italy's at 11%. Russia's at 12%. I don't even know how Russia's economy works. That's you know, they're in the middle of a war right now. So also I wanted to mention while we're talking about the government, federal employees have to go back to work now that Joe Biden has ended
once he signs this COVID whatever.
May 11th, I believe, is the COVID emergencies will all be lifted. We'll have to start paying for COVID tests again. We'll be back to normal.
Back to normal. That's the all clear sign. We were looking for that the end of 2020.
Yeah. But federal employees who've been using COVID as an excuse to work from home will have to go back to work.
Yeah, they're going to have to.
So they'll be sitting in traffic with the rest of us.
Yeah.
And maybe buying more gas.
Yeah.
And maybe going to the Quick Trip more and buying snacks for their desk and all that stuff. So we'll see what happens with that. All right. Interest rates raised again, but not a lot.
It's not terrible. A quarter point, 0.25%.
Inflation's coming down.
Inflation's slowly coming down.
Slowly.
And again, even Janet Yellen said, I think in her little press conference, whatever you want to call it, she said inflation will be around for a while. I don't think that they're going to knock this out in the next 6 months, or towards the end of the year. I think that it's over the next couple of years. It's still going to be out there. And again, but the inflation rate that the Federal Reserve gives us is X food and oil. So it doesn't even put it into the equation. So.
Yeah. All right. And then we'll go to a commercial break, but I just want to remind everybody, if you want Jeff to do your taxes for you this year, don't submit your taxes too soon.
Yes. Because
the numbers that you're getting from your E-Trade account, the numbers that you're getting from your whatever account, they're just rough numbers for now.
Yes.
Wait till the final numbers come in. Wait until you have all your documents in a row, and then file. Because the last thing you want to do is send out an e-file and then realize, I had a 1099 here that I didn't submit.
I overlooked.
Well, if you have one, the government's got a matching one, and if you didn't include it, they're going to sit there and say, well, what?
Yeah, wait a minute.
Wait a minute, I always talk to Jeff. I say, why are we playing this game of why don't you tell me what you made? The government knows all of this stuff, and they are it's the honesty game. It's all right.
It's on your honor. So, I mean, our tax system is based upon on your honor.
On your honor.
Which means, hey, if I made this money, I'm supposed to report it. The problem in what the IRS sees is there's a lot of people not reporting it.
Yeah.
So that's why they're going to hypothetically kick up the enforcement side. We'll see over the next few years. But.
The government has what you made. The government has what you spent. The government has what you earned.
Yes.
From brokerage accounts. It has all your 1099s. It has everything. And then they sit here and say, all right, now send in your taxes.
Yeah. And let's see if you're right.
We'll see if they match. We'll see if you're right. And then if you're not right, then you get sent down a chute and maybe get audited.
Well, because if it's not, they kick off this thing that says report. There's a notice that they send you saying, we think that you owe more tax. And it says, reported by you. Reported by others. And it's a list of all your W-2s, 1099s, you name it.
And then there's one reported by me, and then there's 12 reported by others. Uh-oh, I made a mistake. I overlooked some things.
Yeah, and it's like, sorry.
Right. So do your taxes, do them right, and if you get troubled or you're like, I'm not smart enough to do these, and I do want to take advantage of keeping more of my money, give Jeff a call, 636-394-5524. Spend your spring with your family.
Cleaning out the garage.
Having fun, using your weekend for your weekend. Let Jeff handle everything else. 636-394-5524. Capital Advisory Group. We'll be back right after this.
Keep What's Yours continues with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall.
Back at the Big 550 KTRS, back to Keep What's Yours with Jeff Zufall. I'm Josh Gilbert. Just a couple minutes left, Jeff. And over the week, I did a segment with Heidi. Mm-hmm. Apparently, jock tax is coming up. And jock tax is when professional athletes come to town.
Yes, sir.
It's also entertainers like comedians, bands, musicians. Yeah. They come to town, they play a show in St. Louis, and they leave. And whatever they earned while they were in town they have to pay local taxes.
Yes.
So sports people, Major League Baseball, gosh, they pay 82 games on the road.
Yeah, they're
that's
paying tax all over the place.
Somebody found a paycheck stub in the Cubs locker room for Andrew McCutchen. I think he was playing for the Pirates at the time. And it said, this was in May, so it only had a couple of, and it said taxes paid in Missouri, taxes paid in St. Louis.
Yes,
not only did
St.
he have
Louis
to pay
City tax,
the St. Louis 1% earners tax.
Yeah.
So it was 5% for Missouri, another extra 1% for St. Louis.
Yeah.
I think they played in Kansas City, Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. It showed it on there, and I was like, well, this doesn't look that bad. You hear all these horror stories. This doesn't look that bad. And then I saw at the bottom of the list, it said, see page 2 for more.
Of the list, exactly.
Yeah, because it just keeps going and going.
Yes.
Have you ever run into this, Jeff? Have you ever seen?
I haven't. Those are people that are, I've seen it. I just haven't physically done it myself. Mm-hmm. But those are people that are traveling the country that are, playing in the entertainers. And they have their own people that know the game on how to play the numbers and make sure that everything's done correctly.
And from what I was reading in this article, it basically said if you just taxed the person, because when he plays for Pittsburgh and when he's here in St. Louis, he doesn't pay Pittsburgh taxes.
Exactly.
Because he was playing.
Pays here.
Pays Missouri tax.
Or if he goes to Kansas City and he plays in Kansas City, he's going to pay whatever KC's tax rate is.
So the article said if they just paid their own city-state tax the entire year and the players from the other team paid theirs, it would almost be a complete wash.
Yes.
But they're making us...
Probably would, but there's some states taxes doesn't have a state tax.
California is really
crazy.
High, though.
Florida
is not a thing.
Yeah.
Texas is not a thing.
You'd think all those guys would be flocking to play for the Marlins.
Yeah, I want to play for the Rangers.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they get you somewhere.
Yeah, they do.
They'll get you somehow.
Yeah. But that goes far. Not only athletes, like you said, entertainers, bands coming in, they all pay that the state tax plus the city tax, is 1% for St. Louis.
So if you earned it here,
you pay it.
You're paying it
yes.
here. So that's kind of their thought process on it. And they did do the math, and it was like a 1% differential here or there if they just paid their tax. Every St. Louis Cardinal pays St. Louis tax for the entire season, So it would just be kind of negligible here and there. But 1% of someone making $37 million a year.
Exactly. There's a chunk of change.
It's a chunk of change there. So the jock tax, kind of weird. But you were telling me the Wayfair tax, someone who sells from an Etsy store.
So if you're selling to across the country into Canada and you're selling to different zip codes, Wayfair tax was a giant court case in the day. Basically where Wayfair, they're saying, hey, you sell all over the place to different zip codes, you're going to have to pay sales tax in those different areas. So kind of a weird scenario. It's got some caveats to it. But if anybody's selling stuff like that, make sure that you're reporting. You know where your clients are, in a sense, what zip codes they're in, to make sure to see if it applies to you or it doesn't apply to you. That's something to really watch, though. Because there's so many people now today that are doing, stuff from their home. They may manufacture
selling T-shirts, selling dog collars, selling
all kinds of stuff, and they're selling it all over. And the question is, and I asked this question: do you collect sales tax? And they go, huh?
Yeah. Uh-oh. So that's the thing. But if I'm based in St. Louis and I have an Etsy store where I'm making T-shirts and sending them all over the country, the sales tax needs to be not where I'm based. But
hypothetically, it's where the clients
are. So I get somebody in Seattle that ordered a T-shirt from me. I'm charging them Seattle sales tax.
Yeah.
Well, how the heck would I know that?
You look it up. It's all out there.
Okay.
It's no different than there is New Mexico has depending upon the zip code that you're in New Mexico, I guess it's a gross income tax. So if you have somebody that's selling through New Mexico, and they basically, you got to add, depending upon the zip code that they're selling to the client in, they got to add 4%, 3.5, 5.5. It's all crazy numbers that have to be added on top of whatever the bid is, in a sense, just to cover their gross receipt tax.
So if I made 100 sales, I'm going to have to theoretically do 100 different.
Hypothetically, there's certain areas that you could, I say, pull it all together if you want to call it that, but it's something to worry about. So if anybody's out there listening and you are selling across the country, make sure that you know exactly what you're doing.
Charge them sales tax, because you don't want to have to pay for it on the back end, and you don't want to be.
Yeah, because then you got to eat the spread on it.
Yeah, yuck. We don't want to do that, and we don't want to have to make our taxes for Jeff any more difficult than they already are. Jeff Zufall will do your taxes for you so you can have fun this spring and not have to worry about it. So bring him all your information. Let him take care of it. 636-394-5524. And he specializes in small businesses.
Yes.
You got a small business that you're running and you're thinking to yourself, well, on paper it says we should have more money than we do. And, the kitty is it's empty.
Yep.
What am I missing? Jeff can do a full audit of your small business and find out where you're bleeding money, where you're making money.
Exactly.
And how to mitigate the bleed and amplify the make.
Yes.
I'm sure that there's better words for that.
There's way better words for that.
Money go up.
Yep, money go up.
Bad money go down.
Yeah.
So give Jeff a call on that as well. 636-394-5524. Keep what's yours. Jeff, we'll see you next week.
You betcha. Thank you.
You've been listening to Keep What's Yours with Josh Gilbert and Jeff Zufall, Senior Tax Strategist and Wealth Manager at Capital Advisory Group. To learn more, call 636-394-5524 or visit CapitalAdvisoryGrp.com.